for his graciousness in allowing me to precede him, despite the fact that he outranks me. So I'm very grateful to that. We've worked together for years. We came to the Senate together, and I always love working with Senator Durbin. He's such a passionate advocate for the causes that he believes in, and this is certainly one of them. Absolutely. I'd say that on the record. I also want to thank you, Darla. It's such a pleasure to meet with the dedicated people from throughout the country who are on the front lines of one of our nation's most difficult challenges. I especially thank the young people here for getting involved to help shape public policy, as well as Chris Bicknell, who is joining us from New Beginnings in Lewiston, Maine. I have visited New Beginnings, I think 3 times, and I brought a former secretary of HUD there to see the good work that was being done, and I am so impressed with what you do. And as you can imagine, in a rural state like Maine, we have very few homeless shelters that are aimed towards helping young people. I want to just divert briefly from my formal remarks, because you may wonder how I got involved in this issue. And the reason I want to tell you this is because there are a lot of young people here, and I want you to know the difference that you can make by sharing your story or the story of someone else, making it personal. So I had a staffer who worked for me on the Appropriations Committee for quite a few years. And after she'd worked with me for a couple of years, she came up to me and she said, "You know, Senator Collins, I was homeless once." Well, I never would have anticipated that. And she told me a long story about essentially being kicked out of her house when she was in high school, and how going to a shelter here in DC had really saved her life and helped her turn everything around. To the point where she was in a very prominent staff position on the Appropriations Committee. And she since has left me and is doing very well as a lobbyist, by the way. But without the assistance that she got, who knows what would have happened to her. So seeing with my own eyes her experience and hearing about it is what motivated me to get involved. So I just wanted to share that with you, because the more that you personalize this and tell the stories, the more real it is for those of us who are trying to advance important public policy. So the size of this challenge is really staggering. Your network estimates that 4.2 million youth experience homelessness at some point each year. And as you know, the Department of Housing and Urban Development does this point-in-time analysis, which is better than nothing, I think, but it does not necessarily accurately reflect what's going on. It's still important. I don't mean to denigrate it, but it reported a 12% increase in the overall number of people in homeless shelters, or people who were in a visibly unsheltered situation on a single night in January last year as compared with the previous year. But what I'm hearing about is from teachers and principals and school superintendents, who I think really have a handle on it, and they are reporting an even worse situation to me. So these statistics are heartbreaking. No child should be burdened with not knowing where they're going to sleep at night. And tragically, as you well know, runaway and homeless youth are at a higher risk of becoming victims, becoming abused, engaging in criminal activity, and even dying. This population is also at greater risk of suicide, unintended pregnancy, and substance abuse, and it's easy to understand why. Many find it impossible to continue in school, and I remember I was so impressed with the efforts that New Beginnings in Lewiston made to get kids to the schools that they had been attending, and that was really important. And then, unfortunately, some of them end up in the criminal justice system. The reality is that the available data likely underestimate the scale and the consequences of the problem. So I know that one of the National Network for Youth's top priorities is advancing the bipartisan Runaway and Homeless Youth and Trafficking Prevention Act. And guess who are the two senators who introduced that? Dick Durbin and Susan Collins. So, and I'm very proud to be Senator Durbin's partner on that. You know, this is an issue that transcends party lines. You can be homeless if you're come from a Republican family or Democratic family or Green family, Independent, doesn't much matter. Comprehensive legislation has been introduced in the House, again by both parties, so that underscores the fact that addressing this crisis transcends party lines. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Runaway and Homeless Youth Act of 1974. And although Senator Durbin and I have been in the Senate for quite a number of years, we were not there 50 years ago, except perhaps as staffers. I don't know. This landmark legislation established the vital programs that help community-based organizations reach young people when they need support the most. I know how hard that you're working on this legislation. Our new bill builds on the past efforts and the lessons that we've learned, because unsheltered youth should have the same opportunities to succeed as their peers. That's our goal. So we would reauthorize and strengthen the existing programs that help unsheltered youth to meet their immediate needs, and also, and I think this is critical, help secure long-term residential services for those who cannot safely be reunited with their families. Obviously, that would be our first preference, but if that can't happen, we need to take a longer-term approach. We would create a new program also called the Prevention Services Program, designed to prevent you from becoming homeless in the first instance. And we support comprehensive services for the victims of trafficking, the survivors of trafficking and sexual exploitation. So the whole purpose of our bill is to support those young people who run away, are forced out of their homes, or are disconnected from their families. A caring and safe place to sleep, eat, grow, study, and develop is critical for all young people. So I'm going to work as hard as I can with my leader, Senator Durbin, on this issue. I don't want this to be blanket. He is a wonderful partner, and together with your help and your advocacy, let's get this done. Thank you so much.